Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X-Force number 25, cover dated August 1993. As you can see, this is a wraparound cover on cardstock paper. It's all penciled by Greg Capullo and inked by him as well. It's excellent. And of course, front and center on the front part of the cover is Cable. Cable's back. Home is the warrior, behold now the Exodus is the cover caption. This is part of the Fatal Attractions event of 1993, which was in celebration of the 30th anniversary of the X-Men, going all the way back to 1963. So as I said, excellent cover. Really always like it when an artist inks their own pencils, because you can see what they're going for in the pencils and how that is expressed in ink. And Exodus there on the back cover, never really a very interesting character in my opinion. Very stilted Silver Age type character that not very much was ever done with him. Now there's another gimmick on this particular cover, and that is the hologram. So I'm going to show you the hologram a bit more there, play around with it. It's pretty cool actually. It's from a Greg Capullo design of Cable running there and blasting away with his gun. That's pretty cool. So let's open this one up to the first page. We get a prologue to begin with. Somewhere in heaven, a shepherd sits alone, wondering which of his many sheep will make for the easiest fleecing. That's a good opening. That's a nice hook to get the reader's interest. Who is this figure in silhouette that we get the close-up of his eyes? Who's sitting in that chair? Whose profile and silhouette does that remind us of? And he says, in answer to Exodus, shall the children be first? Yes. Since my own children seem unattainable, let us then invite his. If the children of the atom are willing to accept the truth, that the dream is dead, the dreamer a fool, then perhaps their kin will awaken. And finally, Charles Xavier's foolish quest for a holy grail, the peaceful coexistence of human and mutant, will be over, says the figure in silhouette. So he's sitting in front of a computer bank of screens which show various different figures that are of interest to him. Everyone from Quicksilver there to, is it Adam X? The first appearance of Adam X. Intriguing. And then of course we have X-Force down here at the bottom. Cannonball, Boomer, Feral, Warpath, Richter, Shatterstar, Siren and Sunspot. So Fatal Attractions, a celebration marking 30 years of excellence featuring X-Force. Let's turn the page. And we get a big anchor image that is also an establishing shot, but this figure in silhouette in the foreground is looking down into Camp Verde, the reservation that belonged to Warpath's people who were massacred. And as the narration makes clear, a sole surviving member of his tribe, James Proudstar, now controls the land. But just before that, Camp Verde had been a small isolated reservation here in the Arizona wastes until its people were killed in an unsolved, unprecipitated slaughter. That's very interesting, and I wonder, was there ever any follow-up on that in terms of who was responsible? Did that ever get followed up on? Anybody know the answer? I know there's one or two subscribers that may well know the answer to that. If you could let us all know in the comments to this video, that'd be great. And so here we are. They're emerging from their shuttlecraft after their last mission. And Feral is sniffing around. People been here. Someone's still here too. Richter asks her, you sure? And Cannonball very assertively says, of course she's sure, Rick. And then this is great in Nicieza's dialogue for Cannonball. He sighs to himself. Here we go again, he says quietly. So there's no rest for X-Force. Let's fan out and scope out the complex, says Cannonball. He is the leader. And Sunspot asks, what about Rusty and Skid, Sam? Because they're the pair who were rescued in the previous issue, but they're still brainwashed from their time with Strife. So that's something that needs to be resolved. Cannonball gives the orders. We'll leave him in the eye pack for now, Bobby. They're still brain fried, so they can't help much. geez, they take us out soon as they take out an intruder, right? So now here he goes. Team leader in the field, split into 4-2s. Boomer with me, we got the Tara section. Bobby and Rick take the lid. Terry and Jimmy hit the garage. Star and Ferrell, you got the weapons depot. I like that. So everybody's racing off in their appointed pairs, and they've got a rendezvous point. We'll all meet in the comm room. Stay in close contact and no stupid solo fighting. Star, Ferrell, you two understand that? So Ferrell hisses there. We hear you, Cannonball. We hear you. And off they go. That's a really great anchor image. Everybody moving in their own very particular style, most especially Ferrell there in the art by Greg Capullo. So Tara is where they've arrived at. Is that a reference to Gone with the Wind, I wonder? Sam, everything okay, she asks. So we can see Sam in here. We see his shadow. Living quarters look clear right now, Boomer. But someone was here. How can you tell? She asks him, and he replies, I've been sketching out ideas for linking all the bunker compounds together. Again, this is great insight into Cannonball thinking strategically for their base. And someone finished off all my designs for the camp, and they did a much better job than I would have. And I want to know who did this and why. So there's a mystery here. Who's this figure in silhouette? It's kind of been given away, of course, by the cover. Like, it's been spoiled by the cover. I mean, it is Cable, yes, but we have to get the little teases here in our prologue. So we've got Siren and Warpath heading along to the vehicle storage and maintenance bunker, and they're shot from behind. Siren first, then Warpath. That's a really nice image there. Good command of anatomy and lighting, spotting of blacks there in Capullo's art. And then we pick up with Richter and Sunspot, and they are they hear Siren's sonic scream, but it was cut off rather abruptly. Sunspot says, as if she were hit with a sonic dampener. So they're on the alert, but someone says to them, even as he hits them with a gas bomb, the two of you never cease to amaze me with your carelessness. So they're gassed into unconsciousness, and here's our figure in silhouette once again. But look at those, the butts of rifles slung over this character's back. Who could it be? Who walks around with an arsenal strapped to their back? Cable, of course. Speaking of arsenals, the weapons depot, we've got Ferrell and Shatterstar there, and Ferrell has picked up something, but she doesn't know what. Some scent. Has anyone told you how heavy your accent gets when you're excited? This is really interesting characterization in Nicieza's dialogue here. So Ferrell is Latin, and she says no buns, but if you hum a few bars. So she's kind of recognizing what he's saying. It's intriguing stuff here from Nicieza. There's some banter, there's some chemistry between Shatterstar and Ferrell in his run. But the two of them are blasted also by the mystery figure who we see here in silhouette once again, and through the eyes of Shatterstar as he's seeing stars. You don't really think I'd be idiotic enough to engage the two of you in combat, do you? So our mystery figure knows them of old, and now he's blasted from behind. This is good stuff. And Cannonball comes in. Sam found you, knocking him in the face, and knocks him into the armory there. Picks up a gun himself. Now, why don't you come out of the shadows, mister, so we can see who? And then he says, oh my lord, you. And Boomer says the same thing at the same time. That's really good body language there as he pulls up his goggles and looks with the arched eyebrow in surprise at the identity of who it is that he's knocked into the armory. It's Cable, of course. And we get our story title here, Back to Front. And our creative team brought to you by Fabian Nicieza, Greg Capullo, with not Richard Bennett. Instead, there's a whole phalanx of inkers. Wycheck, so Bob Wycheck, Dan Green, Matt Ryan, Jimmy Palmiotti, Scott Hanna, Kevin Conrad, and Al Milgrom, and no Richard Bennett. So Richard Bennett was kind of like touted and advertised as the new inker over Greg Capullo's pencils in the last issue, but he's gone already. Well, where's he gone? He's penciling and inking Uncanny X-Men 303, the issue in which Illyana dies of the legacy virus. So he's off doing that, and then after that, Bob Harris will get him to do an issue of Adjectiveless X-Men, which if my memory serves, I think it's 27 or 28 or 29, one of those issues he pencils and inks. So here we go, Cable, and what has, Cable has been missing since Executioner's Song, the end of Executioner's Song. It seemed he died with Strife at the end of that, which was X-Force issue number 18. So here he is back in the title after just over 6 months. And he looks younger, eh? Looks like he's had like a hair transplant as well. This is a younger, fresher, physically speaking, version of the character. So what is going on? Let's continue and find out. So Boomer comes up to him immediately, hugs him and says, "It can't be, but you're alive." And he says, obviously Tabitha, and she says, "I can't believe it. How did you survive?" "Cable, old pal," says Cannonball from off panel. Even though this is an open border panel, always a good trick to use in your toolbox for layouts. Keeps the layout interesting. Cannonball there showing Cable that he had him cold for another punch in the face. How's this for strategy? The beautiful blonde distracts you, while a kinetic field punch knocks you back where you belong, into tomorrow. And I like the quip there as well. The pun is pretty good too. "That's real impressive, Sam," says Cable. "You've got the angry young man pose down pat." Sam responds, "Pose? I like the beautiful blonde part myself," says Boomer. "Like you would know nothing about blonde, less it came in a bottle," says Ferrell. So we got the rivalry between those pairs still going on. And this is it. Like, Ferrell got a scent of something, but it wasn't familiar. "Hey, boss, nice to see you back. Your scent is different." So who is this that's back? You know, readers could be wondering, well, is it Strife posing as Cable? Or is it really Cable? And he responds saying, kind of obliquely, "I am different, Maria. Each battle should change a man." But what does that mean? Shatterstar believes in him nonetheless and makes obeisance to him as his commander. "It's an honor, sir, to see a respected warrior return from a battlefield where he was thought cancelled." So of course Shatterstar using the phraseology of Mojo World there. And who are skeptics regarding Cable? Well, it's Richter and Sunspot. They left the New Mutants when Cable took over, and they're not happy to see him back. So Cable says to them, "Richter, DaCosta, I never expected to see the two of you with X-Force again, but truth to tell, I'm glad you've both come back." So they're taken aback by that. They're a little surprised. "What about my father?" Cable says. "Richter, I saw you kill him when I was a boy." "Wasn't me, kid," responds Cable. "Strife murdered your father, Rick. My twin with his helmet off, so it looked like it was me. Why, I don't know, but Strife never needed a reason to kill, did he?" So of course the first time that readers saw that Strife had Cable's face was at the end of New Mutants number 100. So that's the reference there. "As for your father, Roberto, he was killed by the external Gideon." So that's news to Sunspot. "When did you find all this out?" asks Cannonball. "Just recently," says Cable. "During the time I spent missing in the time stream." So that's what happened to him. Between life and death, here and there, I learned a lot of things. But he's not going to explain everything just yet. So Cannonball is wondering whether to trust him. "You say you need us, Cable, but maybe we don't need you," he also says to Cable. Cable puts his hand on his shoulder and says, "Acting's a good choice of words, Sam. You've been weighed down," like he's acting leader, "you've been weighed down by the burden of leadership since I left. Forced to make the kinds of decisions no one your age should have to make. You've wrestled with the responsibility of living, of lives balancing on your every word. Tell me the truth, Sam. Tell yourself the truth, that it isn't too much for any one man or woman to bear. Tell me you haven't felt yourself alone and apart from everyone around you. It's the isolation of leadership, and it isn't pleasant, I know. So tell me that you haven't purposely distanced yourself emotionally for fear of being hurt or hurting others." And Sam responds, "I have." Turn the page. And now there's a hug between them. But Cable's speech is interesting because it will apply, or we can apply its terms to the figure in silhouette from the first page of this issue, the one sitting in front of the big bank of computer screens, all of that talk about leadership and separating oneself from others. So they hug it out here, and Cable says, I forgot that soldiers fighting together are more than programmable machines. He's apologizing for the way he's been in the past. They're brothers in arms, they're a family, and I want to try to do right by you, son. And that's a very interesting phrase he uses of Cannonball. Remember, Cannonball's father is dead, so he has in previous issues been really concerned about Cable's legacy, what maybe he left them behind and what was there in Greymalkin and the Professor and so on and so forth. So this is all getting emotionally resolved here in the first third of this 40-page story. So in come Warpath and Siren, they're up and conscious again, and now we get this handshake between Cannonball and Cable. He says, well, things are sure going to be different around here with you back. They can never be the same again, but the road remains the same and we all ride it together. And Cable responds, then it's lucky for me, I'm wearing a brand new pair of shock absorbers just in case it gets bumpy. So Cable's come back from the dead with a sense of humour. That's a bit different from the Rob Liefeld version that was so crabby and crotchety. And outside we still have Richter skeptical. 2 hours, he says. They've been talking for 2 hours now. How much longer they're going to be down there? And so he's getting restless. Warpath says to him, you say something, Rick. He's listening to a band of the period. And meanwhile, Shatterstar is training there, always training. I like the body language there on Feral. She's just lying on that rock like a cat in a way. It's good stuff. We get a little bit of a tussle between Richter and Shatterstar. That's really good command of anatomy there. And another borderless panel at the top in Capullo's art. Shatterstar gets the better of Richter. I really like this little bit here where Feral's chasing after that lizard. And Warpath says to Feral, you're just happy because having Cable back protects you from getting run out of here by us. And she responds, she's caught the lizard. Look at the way she's poked her claw all the way through its back and out its belly. Yeah, right, Geronimo. Like, I'm just sure that's what I was really, really, really worried about. I'm sure. So, yeah, that's funny stuff there. Then, what are they doing? What are the leader types of X-Force doing? Well, they're trying to figure out what to do about Rusty and Skids. And we get a little bit more here. We learn what's wrong with them specifically. So Cable says their brains have had specific neural tissue implants which force them to behave the way they do. Once several years ago for me, 2,000 years in the future for you, Strife did the same thing to my son Tyler. So this is, more mysteries resolved here where Cannonball asks in surprise, your son Tyler, but you said he wasn't. Cable says, frankly, I lied about Tyler to keep myself emotionally distant from you, Sam. Guess it worked, says Sam rather quietly. I'll try to find a new way, says Cable. So anyway, they're talking there about what can they do in order to get Rusty and Skids back to normal. And Cable says, maybe I could find a way, if I could find a way to contact the Professor, get us up to Greymalkin, maybe the equipment is up there. So Siren is thinking, we can take the IPAC unit orbital, can't we? And Cannonball says, sure, but not before we're sure we know what we're doing. Still don't trust me, do you, Sam? Says Cable. And Sam replies, give me a good enough reason to, sir. Okay, so let's see what's going to happen here. Turn the page and see all the speech balloons here. We get, for the present moment, an account from Cable of who he is, what his relationship to Strife is, what his story is, and we get it all here in this long speech of his. This was a mystery from New Mutants, from Rob Liefeld's X-Force run, and Nicieza is resolving it all here, putting it all together. You want some concrete answers from the horse's mouth? Right, Sam? Fine, you deserve it, he says. Here goes. My original name is Nathan Dayspring, delivered to the future by a woman named Ascani. So that's our link back to X Factor number 68, and raised to be the savior for the rebellion against the Canaanite rule of the external High Lord whom you know in this timeline as Apocalypse. So Apocalypse is an external High Lord too. We lost the war in my future, Sam, says, so I return to this timeline, which happened to be a focal point for all history, which may happen, to ensure that madmen like Apocalypse would never have the opportunity again to create the kind of hell that my world has become. And you, Sam, were part of my plan, the hope I was going to develop a High Lord taught and raised by the views of both Xavier and Magneto, the one person who someday in the future can become mankind and mutant kind savior. Then a monkey wrench got thrown into the works. I never knew until recently that the Chaos Bringer, a worldwide fomenter of anarchy from my time known as Strife, had come back here as well and was apparently my exact duplicate. I have my suspicions as to why that is, but until I know for sure, I think I'll keep that to myself. I never had the chance to verify what I believe. After we were both sucked into the time stream, I escaped, Strife didn't. So the question here is what exactly is Strife? Is Strife Nathan Christopher's doppelganger, or what's going on? That remains unresolved. But Sam is satisfied by the explanation that Cable has given him. So now, more than that, Cable says he can't reveal. There are still some answers I can't give you, Sam, both because I can't reveal potential futures to you, but also because I have become a traveler so mired in the time stream that I'm not sure which future belongs to this particular timeline anymore. So that's Fabian Nicieza's Get Out in terms of maybe other reconfigurations of Cable's story to come in the future. So now they're resolved in terms of what they are. Well, no, they're not quite resolved. The plan is to get up to Greymalkin, but there's an interruption. There's a complication in the plot, and this brings us into the midpoint of our 40-page story. We get a nice anchor image here. There's a perimeter breach. Alarm goes off. So let's see. What's this? It's Exodus. So Exodus, from the cover, he introduces himself. His dialogue style is very Silver Age Marvel villain type, and he says, I've come seeking only Samuel Guthrie and Roberto da Costa, for they are the first chosen to convene with the Overlord. So who is the Overlord? That still remains mysterious. These guys here, Richter, Warpath and Shatterstar, they're a bit miffed by what's going on, and Exodus perceives, but how is it by some psionic talent that they're planning to attack him, so he attacks them first. And Warpath is still standing. You still stand, Proudstar. I'm impressed, he says. We forced you to do this just cause we thought about protecting ourselves, asks Warpath. No, you thought about attacking me. So he has psionic powers. And do you, children of X-Force, not pride yourselves so much on turning thought into deed? So he's attacked there by Siren, it would seem, from the sound effect. Yes, it is. Another great anchor image here of everybody racing towards Exodus. And he says, I have not come here to do battle with you. I've come only to make an offer to the perpetuators of the dream. I do not wish to hurt any of my genetic brethren. So he's a powerful mutant. He's able to knock them all down. He continues with his presentation saying, I grant you an escape from this asylum called Earth. The harbinger of the magnetic storm wishes to carry you both away from here. So what's the magnetic storm? What's that a paraphrase for? And lift you to a better place. As the sole remaining active participants from Xavier's second generation, I grant only the two of you this boon. So Cannonball asks, well, what about Cheyenne Coy-Man? What about Rain Sinclair? And Exodus says, of those new mutants, the former has spurned heaven. The latter has not been officially approached. So I don't think we ever saw that, Cheyenne Coy-Man being approached, unless it happened in X Factor. I'm not sure. I can't remember is what I mean. It was hoped your participation would lead to others joining our cause. Whose cause? Asked Cannonball. And Exodus says, all will be revealed when the gates of heaven open to greet you. So this is really drawing out the big reveal of who the magnetic storm is. But I mean, like, it's obvious. It's Magneto, yes. So Cannonball says, well, no gates are going to open unless the other New Mutants come with us. and that means Boomer and Richter. So he's putting a condition down on going with Exodus. Exodus replies he has not requested their audience. Cannonball asserts himself. I really like this version of Sam, he says, but I have. So he really has found confidence in the period when Cable was away. He's grown into being a leader himself, and he's showing it here. So Cable says to him, this is a stupid move, Sam. Strategically, and Sam replies, you were right before about me being tired. Maybe it's high time we went to a better place, did better things than this. But how does that follow on from anything Sam said earlier? Notice also tapping Cable's shoulder, and off they go. So shall it be, says Exodus, and they disappear in this whirlwind up to heaven, quote unquote. So Shatterstar is aghast. How could Guthrie betray us like this? Warpath knows what was going on. Sam knew what he was doing all along, didn't he? And so did you, Cable. Yeah. So it was all a ploy, all a ruse, and Cable twigged to Sam's strategy. When he grabbed my shoulder, Sam planted his comlink tracer, just like I trained him to do. It's a dangerous ploy, but how better to find out who's behind all this. I like this strategic thinking here. It's clever stuff. It's interesting. It comes out of the characters. It's more character driven than plot driven. The plot is editorially mandated. It's Bob Harris wants the return of Magneto, so we got to have a harbinger because of all of this religious subtext to Magneto representing himself as a messiah for mutants on this return for the 30th anniversary of the first issue of the X-Men. That's all editorial mandated. That's all plot driven. But Nicieza is treating the characters well here and trying to figure out, okay, I have to deal with this plot, I have to deal with the arrival of Exodus, how would the characters react? And it's good stuff is what I would say. So now they are going to head up and join Sam, but covertly. So now, where are they? Not again, says Sam. They are aboard an orbiting space station. Excuses if we don't ooh and ah. It's just that for us, crazy as it may sound, this kind of thing gets kind of old, kind of fast, says Sam about being on the space station, because they'd just been on Grey Malkin a few issues ago. And again, I feel this is Fabian Nicieza speaking indirectly through the characters regarding Bob Harris's plot here, that we have to have, well, we'll learn what its name is in Uncanny X-Men 304. We have to have Avalon, and X-Force now has to be up in a space station again, and it's coming out in Sam's dialogue. I like it. It's like Sam is kind of, in a way, Fabian Nicieza's, I would say he's his favourite character in this run. That's my kind of guess. I think, yeah, he does really well with Sam, and Sam can be here and there a little mouthpiece for Nicieza's thinking about X-Force and what they should be and how they might relate to other X teams. So now they're moving along through the space station, and Exodus says, you do not seem to understand, Samuel Guthrie. Perhaps you've been on orbital stations before, but you have been on this particular one twice now. The refuge we've christened Avalon. Okay, so that's revealed here in this particular issue. For you are walking through the former home of the mutant Cable, the place you knew as Grey Malkin. So they're wondering, X-Force are wondering, well, where's the professor? Is he still around? And Sunspot asks, Professor, are you still inside the system? Exodus replies, if you're referring to the sentient computer presence previously aboard this vessel, indeed, we have made some improvements. I'm afraid you are wasting your breath. Are you saying you killed the Professor, Exodus? Because if you did, Cannonball threatens, grabs him by the arm. I like that. That's good body language. Look at what Capullo's doing here. It's a little obscured in the colouring, but we have the whole team walking down this staircase. That's really tricky to draw. The perspective, the construction of the staircase, That's difficult to do, and he's just doing it so nicely and easily there. We altered its programming, says Exodus Y, and now our mystery figure in silhouette emerges for the same reason we do everything here on Avalon, Sam. All our actions are performed for the greater good of mutant kind. This figure is bare-chested under that cloak. You, sir. You, sir. And then Cannonball says to Bobby, no, it cannot be. So they recognize who it is. But why aren't we just being shown who it is? Why is there this teasing all the way to the end of this issue? For me, it's kind of pointless. It's pointless teasing. In any case, the cloaked figure says, these two can be cured, the iron content in their blood blocked by rerouting the circulatory flow from the biologically affected portions of their brains, in essence destroying the brain tissue, which was surgically and telepathically altered by the madman Strife. So, who is it that has the power to do this with the iron content in blood? It's Magneto, of course. Nice top-down angle here on X-Force, Exodus, and the cloaked figure. Allow me to officially welcome you to Avalon, son and daughter of the Atom, your new home, a place all mutants deemed worthy of it will soon call. Exodus says here, turn the page, heaven, right? And now the scene switches to the IPAC, arcing up into space, back in space again, says someone. Oh, it's Feral. Silence your hissing cat. Who would say that? Probably Shatterstar, I think. And so they're aboard. Warpath doesn't like it, or maybe it's Cable saying, I really don't like this. In fact, I don't like this one bit. What do you see, Cable? We're still locked onto Sam's signal. Cable says, Siren, superimpose the tracking coordinates over the grid display. I'm feeding your console now. And then they get this big reading here. There's something orbiting the Earth. What is it? What is it? So Cable says, I'm going to send a high energy pulse override signal. And this is going to reveal whatever the thing is that's cloaked, that's orbiting the Earth. And it's Grey Malkin. It's the remains of Grey Malkin. So Cable exclaims, I knew it. Grey Malkin, someone has taken it from me. And Siren kind of asks, well, you know, what's the problem? And he says, you don't understand, Teresa. Grey Malkin is all I have. All that reminds me of where I've been, the life I lost, and where I need to go. And Siren says, you have us, Nathan. We have each other. You must forget about what you've lost. Your past is our future. What you had, what you no longer have, it's not as important as making the possibilities happen. You're the one who planted these seeds in our time. Now it's time to see it grow and be harvested. Well now, do we sit and stew or do we move forward? So Cable says, we move forward. We find the others, then we roll right over the people who did this, because heaven also awaits those who pray. So there you go. So now we're into the last third of the issue, and Cable's, ready for action once again. He's not going to be moping very long. But we get this dialogue here between Cannonball and our mysterious, why is he still in shadow, character here, where Cannonball says, I led them here, sir. We had to have an out in case there was trouble. I give you credit, Sam. You took a great risk blindly coming here. Blind it seems, but not unprepared. You've grown much. You've learned much. And Sam replies, believe it or not, I do owe quite a bit of that to you. To believe that were true would be an honor, replies the figure, and I would relish the opportunity for you and for me to learn more from each other. I wish for you to stay, Sam, all of you stay. As you ponder my offer, ask yourselves, though we are forever marked as children of the Atom, are we still children of Charles Xavier's dream? And as your independence will attest, your reply must be no. Then follow that question with this. Is the path of this man called Cable the right one for mutants to follow? For I assure you, X-Force, it is not. I offer the only way, as I have from the beginning. So look, it's Magneto, and Magneto had a time as headmaster of the New Mutants after Professor X went off with Lilandra into the Shi'ar Empire because he, in the aftermath of being mugged outside Columbia University in New York, he needed special treatment, and so he left the Earth also to be with his beloved, And at the end of Uncanny X-Men 200, appointed Magneto his successor as headmaster of the New Mutants. So that's what's being referenced there. And I like that callback to deep continuity. So now Cable and the Covert team, they're aboard, but they've been spotted. Cable there saying, I'm going to override the body sliding technology, find Sam's unit and teleport them here. Then I'm going to program this entire station to obliterate itself. But he's attacked. They're attacked by Exodus. So we get a fight here. Nice enough anchor image here of Feral and Shatterstar going up against Exodus. He takes umbrage at the attack, calls them animals. Is this how you treat the messenger of hope? He really has a big ego, does Exodus. And there's all kinds of damage being wrought by X-Force here aboard the station. And we get an interesting little bit of dialogue here from Warpath where he says, shame to be knocking your head off, he says to Exodus, since you look Indian to me. Then again, if you're trying to hurt my friends, what you are doesn't matter nearly as much as what you're doing does. So there was a little hint there regarding Exodus's ethnicity, but we never really got more on that as far as I know. So what happens here is Cable makes some success with his programming. He programs an override link to the station's teleport systems. He says X-Force were moving out, and what happens is he teleports to where Cannonball and the others are. Sam, come on, pack it up, he says. You're out of here now. Cannonball replies, but what about you? I'm going to try and retrieve the professor's sentient programming from the systems, says Cable, and then I'm going to blow this place to pieces. Cannonball demurs. No, he says. And Cable is emotional now at this point. He says, no, what do you mean no? Greymalkin is lost to me. It's become completely co-opted by the alien systems introduced into its central data net. And you know who's responsible, Sam. Do you honestly want him hovering over the planet like some mad god? Cannonball replies, okay, so Cannonball had his argument with Professor X in X-Force number 19. Now he's going to have his argument with Cable. And it's all about all these father figures around and surrounding Cannonball, and who's he going to be loyal to? Professor X, Cable, Magneto, and remember, in the background his own father is dead. Magnus says this place is going to become a safe home for mutants if that's what they want. He saved Rusty and Skids, and they've decided to stay here. They have every right to make their own choice, just like the rest of us do. We can continue to fight back home on Earth for what we believe in. That doesn't mean everyone has to. The right to make our own choices, the right of self-determination, is the argument we used against Xavier to gain our own freedom. Who are we to tell others they don't have the same rights? So Cannonball making a very ethically consistent argument here. People should have the freedom to make their own choices. X-Force shouldn't demand that they make choices that maybe they don't want to. So Cable, he thinks and says to think, it was the two of you that got me into this moral quagmire to begin with. I never wanted to become a teacher again or a father. Now look at the choices my students, my children are forcing me to make. Computer, override access, body slide by 8, IPAC bound, disengage mooring locks, set autopilot for return to origination coordinates. So that is the Camp Verde reservation. So he sends X-Force off and he goes solo to get the professor's programming out of Greymalkin. This is really weird colouring here of his growing stubble on his face. That's kind of weird. But in any case, here he is. He's trying to get the professor out of Greymalkin's, out of kind of Avalon systems, and he succeeds. He says here, come on, I'm a dead man, standing here, dead to rights, all for a stupid computer program. And the professor speaks up and says, why, Nathan? I'm not certain if I should be thanking you for your tenacity or chiding you for your insults. So just at the moment of Cable's success, someone comes up behind him. I believe allowing you to retrieve this small piece of your past was more than gracious of me. says the figure off panel. Now finally it's Magneto. But why aren't we getting a full page image of Greg Capullo's Magneto? That's what we want. That's what I want here. Just not getting it because we only have so many pages left to wrap up the story. But it's a pretty good version of Magneto. Like, obviously Jim Lee's version from X-Men, Uncanny X-Men 274, 275, and X-Men issues 1 to 3 is the high watermark for Magneto in this era. And Capullo doing a pretty good job on the character and the costume and the body language of the character. So Magneto says, surely you do not expect me to allow you to destroy my home as easily as you did my hope of bringing all of the children under my fold. For given time, Cable, they would have seen the light. So Cable says to him, so it is you, in full armor no less. Time is something I've seen plenty of, Magneto, and in all that time I've only seen you fail. Time and again. Your way leads to oppression and bitterness, Magneto, and ends in death. So he's really not putting a tooth in it when in respect of his response to Magneto, and then he comes at him guns blazing. I've chosen to follow, he says here, you don't get it, do you? They haven't chosen to follow my path anymore. I've chosen to follow theirs. So that's intriguing. And that's a road which you and I are barreling down from opposite directions, which means we're gearing up for a head-on collision. And Magneto, Cable is partly metallic machine. Magneto's not going to have any problems with him. He says, I am the overlord of the fatal attraction. Makes your decision utterly devoid of reason. Sam and the others should have been mine, man of tomorrow. They could have helped me build a glorious home for our people. And they were mine once, mine to meld and form, but that is lost. But what I find most galling of all, Cable, he says, is that in your arrogance, your ego, and your outright stupidity, you would choose to throw away all that those children have to offer you. He's getting the better of Cable in this fight by allowing yourself to be killed at my hands. And look at that for a shocking anchor image. So Magneto, using his magnetic powers lethally, a lethal usage on Cable, pulling apart his mechanical body. And look at that. Look at the way he's arching with his back in pain. That's really, really well done by Capullo. And then he's just left this pool on the floor of, I would say that's meant to be blood, but they kind of balked at representing it that way. He looks absolutely brutalized. Just sheer gore on the floor. And Magneto's standing over him, continuing. He says, why does your own lack of faith cause you to make the same mistakes over and over again? Odd that I should be asking you that. Look at the vicious cycle I've placed myself in, but you chose the name Cable for all it implies a link between then and now, between the desire for a better world and the need to fight for it. And now look at you, lost, adrift, and finally, literally and figuratively, a man out of time. But Cable's not dead. So he just manages to call the professor, and the professor says, I'm inside of you, Nathan, barely. Okay, that's not a double entendre, but it did make me laugh the first time I read it. It's more that the professor is inside Cable's own programming and systems. You still live, which is a little mysterious suggestion or clue at this point. Is Cable all machine? Is there any part of him that is original flesh, or is his flesh synthetic? I mean, like, he did spend his childhood 2,000 years in the future, so is he the doppelganger of Nathan Christopher? Is there any human flesh in there is the big question. And if the professor is in him, how is he in him? Unless Cable has his own computer systems. And Magneto here is surprised. You still live. Why would a man who has so much artifice desperately cling to life? So Cable replies with difficulty, because I'm not a machine. I am a man who just beat you, because X-Force is mine, Magnus, and you've lost them for good. Body slide by one, iPac bound, and then he's aboard the iPac, which is heading down to Earth to Camp Verde. He's just this mess on the floor. So Sunspot asks Professor, You're alive, excellent. The professor's speaking through Cable. That would depend on your definition of failure, Roberto. Magnus retains the use of the station, but Nathan successfully removed my programming from the central core, while still also managing to maintain the override on the station's interplanetary teleportational systems. From a personal and albeit selfish standpoint, I would call Nathan's endeavors an overwhelming success, says the professor. So they make it into Earth's atmosphere, and meanwhile aboard Avalon, Magneto in the shadows with Exodus and Rusty and Skids watches on his computer screen their arrival in Camp Verde. So he's obviously got spy tech in Camp Verde, and he says, or Exodus says to him, "He was not nearly the challenge expected, my lord. Really, Exodus, I thought he was a far greater threat than I had anticipated. This was not a physical combat, my friend," says Magneto, "but a philosophical one. And ultimately, by robbing me of the chance to forge the minds of the next generation of mutants, it is a battle which Cable has won." This is a really great panel here of Magneto seated in his, in effect, throne. And he continues and says, "For now, we'd best turn our attention towards Xavier's brood, offer them haven, and see how they will respond." And that takes us to Uncanny X-Men 304. And you can find my video review of that already on the channel. And then what about X-Force? What happens next? How does Cable feel about his brush with death? Again. And the changes in X-Force since he left them. So we're going to get, in promise, a bit of a quiet issue maybe for issue 26. Well, I do hope that you enjoyed my review and commentary on X-Force 25, part of the Fatal Attractions event of 1993. Let me know your thoughts on this, the return of Cable with a new and fuller head of hair, in the comment section to this video. And if you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like the video on YouTube. It really does help the channel, and share it too. That helps also. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.